When we speak of miracles, it's easy to imagine grand, awe-inspiring events, moments when the laws of nature are defied, when the impossible becomes reality. Yet the true miracles are often subtler, quieter, and more deeply rooted in the ordinary, everyday moments of our lives. We may fail to recognize them because they do not fit the grandeur of what we expect a miracle to be. But the fact remains, God's miracles are often manifested in simple acts of faith, trust, and surrender. The first step toward experiencing these miracles lies in the quiet power of prayer. Prayer is not a magical formula. It is a surrendering of the soul, a gentle opening of the heart to God. Through prayer, we invite God's presence into our lives, acknowledging our dependence on Him and our willingness to trust His divine will. The saints knew this truth intimately. Saint Teresa of Avila, one of the greatest mystics of the Church, devoted her life to prayer and deep spiritual communion with God. She once wrote, "I am not sure what heaven is like, but I know that God hears us when we speak to Him in the silence of our hearts." Saint Teresa experienced firsthand the miracles that unfold when we trust and communicate with God through prayer. Her life was filled with moments of profound grace, yet she never sought miracles for their own sake. Instead, she sought a deeper, more intimate relationship with God. And it was in this relationship that miracles occurred. Not necessarily in dramatic signs or wonders, but in the quiet transformation of the soul. Teresa's prayer was her miracle, her constant communion with God, through which she experienced divine peace and inner clarity, no matter the external circumstances. What can we learn from her? It is not the extraordinary or the visible that makes us truly aware of God's presence, but the quiet moments of connection. Our prayer does not need to be long or filled with elaborate words. What matters is the sincerity of our hearts, the depth of our desire to connect with God. Perhaps you are struggling with doubt or uncertainty, wondering if your prayers are being heard. Let me remind you of the words of Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew. "But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you." Matthew 6:6. These words invite us into a private, intimate space of connection with God, a space where the world fades away and only the whisper of our souls and the gentle presence of God remain. In the quiet of this space, miracles begin to unfold. When you close your eyes in prayer, you may not see the heavens open or angels descending, but what you will experience is something far greater: the presence of the Creator, the one who holds all things in His hands, the one who knows your deepest needs even before you ask. I encourage you, dear friend, to create this sacred space in your life.
Whether it's in the early morning, when the world is still and calm, or in the quiet moments before sleep, take time to simply be with God in prayer. Trust that He hears you, even when words fail you. And when doubt creeps in, remind yourself of the simple truth that God is always near, always listening, always present. Your prayers, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, are the first step toward experiencing the miraculous in your life. Now, I ask you, how often do you truly pray with an open heart? How often do you set aside the worries of the world and simply surrender to God's presence? I invite you to reflect on these questions and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your experiences may serve as a blessing to others who are walking this path of faith. As you continue to deepen your prayer life, know that God is faithful. His miracles may not always appear as we expect, but they are always present in the stillness of prayer. Take time today to surrender your heart to God and trust that in His perfect time, He will reveal His miracles in your life. If you feel moved by these words and seek more guidance on this journey of faith, consider subscribing to receive more spiritual reflections and practices that can help you cultivate a life full of divine miracles. May your heart be open, and may you always find peace in the presence of God. Faith is not merely an abstract concept or a fleeting feeling. It is a living, breathing force that transforms everything in its path. But how do we cultivate this kind of faith? The answer is simple: through trust. Faith is nothing more than an extension of our trust in God, a belief that He is who He says He is, and that He is working for our good, even when we cannot see it. Trust, like faith, is a powerful force. It can move mountains, heal wounds, and create miracles. And yet, we often find ourselves struggling to trust, especially when faced with trials that seem insurmountable. St. Augustine once said, "Faith is to believe what you do not see. The reward of this faith is to see what you believe." In these words, St. Augustine is revealing a profound spiritual truth, that the journey of faith is one of seeing with the heart rather than the eyes. Faith does not always align with our understanding, nor does it always match the circumstances we find ourselves in. It often requires a leap into the unknown, a surrender of our need for control, and a deep trust in God's goodness. Consider the story of St. Thomas, the apostle often referred to as Doubting Thomas, because he struggled to believe in the resurrection of Christ without physical proof. When Jesus appeared to him after his resurrection, Thomas was invited to touch Christ's wounds and believe. But Jesus responded with a gentle rebuke, saying, "Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed."
In this moment, Jesus offers a profound lesson. True faith is not dependent on visible evidence, but on trusting in God's promises, even when we cannot see the outcome. This is the kind of trust we are called to cultivate in our own lives. It is easy to trust when everything is going well, when our prayers seem to be answered immediately, when the path ahead is clear and smooth. But what about when the road is uncertain? What about when we face challenges that seem impossible to overcome? In these moments, faith can feel like a distant, unreachable goal. Yet it is precisely in these moments of doubt that our faith has the potential to grow deeper, more resilient, and more transformative. I invite you to reflect on the words of Jesus in Matthew 17:20. If you have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, "Move from here to there," and it will move. Nothing will be impossible for you. This passage is not about performing grand miracles, but about the transformative power of trust in God. Even the smallest amount of faith, when placed in God's hands, can bring about profound change. Trusting in God does not mean we will always see the outcome immediately, but it does mean we can rest in the knowledge that He is faithful and that His plans for us are always good. To help nurture this kind of trust, I encourage you to begin with small acts of surrender. In moments of uncertainty, Say a simple prayer of trust, such as, "Lord, I trust you with my fears and my uncertainties. I surrender this situation into your hands." Repeat this prayer throughout the day, especially when you find yourself struggling to believe. With time, you will notice that your trust in God will grow, even in the most challenging circumstances. Perhaps, like Thomas, you have moments of doubt. You wonder if God is truly present or if His promises are real. Remember that doubt does not disqualify you from faith. It is a part of the journey. But just as Jesus reached out to Thomas in his doubt, He reaches out to us in our moments of uncertainty, inviting us to trust in His love and in His plan for our lives. As you reflect on this, I invite you to consider your own journey of faith. How have you seen God move in your life, even in small ways? What areas of your life still require a deeper trust in Him? Take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments below. Your reflections may serve as a source of encouragement for others who are walking this path of faith. In the end, remember that trust is not about having all the answers or understanding every detail of God's plan. It is about surrendering to the one who knows all things, the one who is faithful, the one who holds your life in His hands. May you find peace in this trust, knowing that God is with you, even in the moments of doubt. And may your faith grow stronger, day by day, as you learn to trust Him more fully.
If you feel moved by these words and wish to continue this journey of deepening faith, I encourage you to subscribe for more reflections and practices that will help you grow in trust and experience God's miracles. May the peace of Christ dwell within you, and may your faith move mountains. Forgiveness is one of the most profound and powerful miracles a believer can perform, not only for others, but also for themselves. It is often said that forgiveness is not about the person being forgiven, but about the one doing the forgiving. This may seem paradoxical at first. How can forgiving someone else have anything to do with our own peace and healing? Yet the truth is that forgiveness is a path to freedom. It is a release, not just of the person who has wronged us, but of the anger, resentment, and pain that we carry within ourselves. St. John Chrysostom, a church father known for his deep spiritual insights, once said, "Forgiveness is the fragrance that the violet sheds on the heel that crushes it." In these words, he highlights the extraordinary grace that forgiveness embodies. Just as the violet offers its fragrance despite being harmed, so too does the believer who forgives, offering love and grace in the face of wrongdoing. It is a miraculous act, one that reflects the very nature of Christ, who forgave His enemies from the cross. Consider the story of St. Stephen, the first martyr of the Christian Church. As he was being stoned to death, he looked up to heaven and prayed, "Lord, do not hold this sin against them." Acts 7:60. Stephen, in his final moments, performed the ultimate act of forgiveness. Rather than cursing those who were killing him, he offered them mercy. This act of profound love and forgiveness mirrors the example set by Christ Himself, who, while on the cross, cried out, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." Luke 23:34. Stephen's prayer is a testament to the transformative power of forgiveness. It is a healing act not just for the one forgiven, but for the one who forgives. When we hold on to anger, when we nurture unforgiveness, it becomes a heavy burden that weighs us down. It traps us in the past, preventing us from moving forward. But when we forgive, we break free from that trap. We are no longer bound by the actions of others. Instead, we release ourselves from the chains of bitterness and resentment.
Jesus teaches us this in the Gospel of Matthew when he says, "For if you forgive other people when they sin against you, your heavenly Father will also forgive you." In these words, Jesus reveals that forgiveness is not just an act of mercy towards others, but a key to our own spiritual freedom. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting or excusing the harm that has been done. It does not mean that we must continue to put ourselves in harmful situations or allow others to hurt us repeatedly.
Rather, forgiveness is about releasing the hold that the offense has over our hearts. It is about choosing peace and healing over anger and pain. When we forgive, we invite God's grace into our lives, allowing Him to heal the wounds that we have carried for so long. One of the most powerful ways to practice forgiveness is through prayer. A simple but profound prayer that can help us release the bitterness we carry is, "Lord, I forgive," name of person, "for the offense. I release them into your hands, and I ask you to heal my heart. Grant me the grace to forgive as you have forgiven me." Saying this prayer regularly can help us let go of the hurts that bind us. It can transform our hearts, allowing us to see others not as our enemies, but as children of God, in need of His love and mercy, just as we are. But how do we forgive when the pain feels too deep, when the wound seems too fresh to heal? It is in these moments that we must turn to God, for He understands our pain and our struggle. He is not asking us to forgive in our own strength, but to rely on His grace. In these moments of difficulty, remember the words of St. Augustine, who said, "The grace of God is like a river. The more we open ourselves to it, the more it flows in us and through us." We may not be able to forgive on our own, but with God's grace, we can. And it is this grace that transforms the impossible into the possible. When we forgive, we participate in the divine act of healing. We open the door to miracles in our own lives, for in forgiving, we are made more like Christ. As you reflect on forgiveness in your own life, consider this: is there someone you need to forgive, not for their sake, but for your own peace? Are there old wounds that you have carried for far too long? Take a moment to bring them before God in prayer, asking for the grace to forgive and to heal. It is not always easy, but remember that forgiveness is a miracle that only God can accomplish through us. I invite you to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. What have you learned about forgiveness in your own life? How has it transformed you? Your reflections may help others who are struggling with this same difficult journey. May the grace of God fill your heart with peace and healing as you embrace the miracle of forgiveness. And may you experience the freedom that comes when you let go of the past and choose to walk in the light of His love. If you are moved by these words and wish to continue your spiritual journey, I encourage you to subscribe for more reflections and practices that will guide you in living a life of forgiveness and grace. May God bless you with His infinite mercy and love. The life of a believer is often marked by moments of trial, pain, and suffering. Yet, in the midst of these challenges, there is a profound opportunity for miracles. Miracles that occur not by changing our circumstances, but by changing the way we approach them.
The miracle of selfless love and service is one such transformation. When we choose to love without expecting anything in return, when we serve others with no desire for recognition, we mirror the very heart of Christ. This is the miracle that transcends personal gain and reflects God's love in the world. Saint Francis of Assisi, one of the most beloved saints in Christian history, offers us a powerful example of this kind of love and service. He was born into a wealthy family, but chose to renounce his material possessions in favor of a life of poverty, humility, and service. He saw in the poor, the sick, and the marginalized the face of Christ. Saint Francis did not perform miracles in the way we might expect, through dramatic signs or wonders. Instead, his miracles were of a different nature. They were acts of profound love and service. He healed the sick, fed the hungry, and cared for those who were rejected by society. Through these acts, he became a living witness to God's love. One of the most famous stories about St. Francis is his encounter with a leper. At the time, lepers were often ostracized, living on the margins of society. Francis, who had previously been repulsed by the sight of leprosy, approached a leper on the road. As he did, something remarkable happened. Instead of recoiling in fear or disgust, Francis embraced the man. In that moment, he experienced a profound transformation. He later recounted that this encounter with the leper was a moment of deep grace. He realized that by embracing the least among us, we embrace Christ himself. St. Francis's story is a reminder that true service is not about grand gestures, but about small acts of love and humility. It is in the everyday moments when we choose to love and serve others that we participate in God's miracles. This is why Jesus taught us that whoever wants to be great among you must be your servant. True greatness in the kingdom of God is found not in power or wealth, but in humble service. The more we love and serve others, the more we reflect the image of Christ in the world. But how do we begin to cultivate this spirit of selfless love? The first step is to recognize that love is a choice that requires us to look beyond ourselves and see others as God sees them. The Apostle Paul offers us a beautiful description of love in 1 Corinthians 13, 4-7. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. This passage gives us a powerful blueprint for love. It is not passive, it is active and intentional. Love requires patience, kindness, and the willingness to forgive. To cultivate this love, I encourage you to start with simple acts of service.
Perhaps it is offering a helping hand to someone in need, or giving a word of encouragement to someone who is struggling. These small acts may seem insignificant, but they have the power to change lives. As you serve others, you are participating in the divine miracle of love. Remember that service does not always have to be grand. Even the smallest act of love has eternal value when done with a pure heart. In addition to service, prayer is a powerful way to nurture this spirit of love. A prayer you might pray each day is, "Lord, help me to see others through your eyes. Teach me to love as you love, to serve as you serve. May my actions reflect your grace and mercy, and may I be a vessel of your love in the world." This prayer aligns your heart with God's will and invites the Holy Spirit to work in you, transforming you into a person of love and compassion. As you reflect on the life of St. Francis and the calling to love and serve, I encourage you to ask yourself, in what areas of your life can you be more selfless? Who is God calling you to serve today? It may be a neighbor, a family member, or a stranger. Remember, the miracle of love often begins in the smallest of acts. If you find yourself moved by this call to service and love, I invite you to share your thoughts and reflections in the comments below. How has love and service shaped your life? Your words may inspire others to step out in faith and serve those around them. May the grace of God empower you to live a life of selfless love and service, and may you experience the miraculous transformation that comes when we choose to love as Christ loves. If you desire to continue this journey of growing in love and service, I encourage you to subscribe and receive more reflections and practices that will guide you in living a life filled with God's miraculous love. May God bless you abundantly, and may His love flow through you to all those you encounter. As we journey through the challenges and blessings of life, there comes a point where we are invited to embrace one of the most profound spiritual practices, surrender. Surrender is often misunderstood. It is not a passive resignation, nor is it giving up in the face of adversity. On the contrary, surrender is an active choice, a conscious decision to place our will in alignment with God's will. It is a bold act of trust, a declaration that we believe God's plan is greater than our own. This is a miracle in itself, one that requires courage, humility, and deep faith. St. Ignatius of Loyola, the founder of the Jesuit order, understood this deep truth when he penned the prayer known as the Suspi prayer. In this simple but powerful prayer, Ignatius offers his entire life to God, saying, "Take, Lord, and receive all my liberty, my memory, my understanding, and my will. All that I am and call my own, you have given all to me. To you, Lord, I return it. Everything is yours. Do with it what you will."
These words reflect the heart of surrender, offering everything to God and trusting that He will use it for His greater good. When we surrender to God, we are not losing control. Rather, we are gaining freedom. We are acknowledging that we are not the ultimate authors of our own story, but that God is. This kind of surrender does not mean we stop striving or working. Instead, it means we acknowledge that we are not in control of the outcome. Our role is to be faithful, to trust, and to do our part with diligence and love, but the results are in God's hands. In the Bible, we see many examples of surrender. One of the most poignant moments is in the Garden of Gethsemane, when Jesus Himself faced the greatest trial of His life. In the midst of His anguish, He prayed to the Father, "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me, yet not as I will, but as you will." Matthew 26:39. In this moment, Jesus models the ultimate act of surrender. He knew the suffering that awaited Him, yet He chose to trust in the Father's plan. His surrender was not a sign of weakness, but a sign of profound strength and submission to God's will. This is the same surrender we are called to in our own lives. But how do we practice this kind of surrender in the midst of our own daily struggles? The answer lies in turning our hearts toward prayer and trust. When we find ourselves facing a situation beyond our control, instead of reacting with fear, anxiety, or frustration, we can pause and pray, asking God for the grace to surrender. A simple prayer you can offer in these moments is, "Lord, I surrender this situation to you. I trust that you are in control and that your will is good. Please give me the strength to accept your plan and to trust in your timing." This practice of surrendering our worries, our desires, and our plans to God allows us to experience peace even in the midst of turmoil. The Apostle Paul writes in Philippians 4, verses 6 through 7, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." When we surrender our anxieties to God, we open ourselves to His peace, a peace that is beyond human comprehension, but which can calm our hearts and minds even when the world around us is in chaos. Surrender is not always easy, and it often requires us to confront our own desires for control, our fears, and our pride. But in those moments of struggle, we must remember the words of Jesus. "Whoever wants to save their life will lose it,
but whoever loses their life for me will find it. Matthew 16:25. Surrendering to God is not about losing ourselves, but about finding ourselves in Him. It is in letting go that we receive everything we truly need. One of the saints who exemplified this kind of surrender was Saint Thérèse de Lisieux, often called the Little Flower.
Saint Therese lived a quiet life in a Carmelite convent, yet her deep trust in God and her total surrender to His will made her a powerful example of holiness. She understood that surrendering to God didn't require extraordinary acts. It required a humble heart, open to God's plan in the ordinary moments of life. Her little way was about surrendering her desires, her plans, and even her weaknesses to God, trusting that He would use them for His glory. In moments when surrender feels difficult, let us turn to the example of these saints. They were not perfect, but they chose to trust in God's love and surrender to His will, no matter the cost. They found peace, joy, and freedom in that surrender, and so can we. I invite you to reflect on areas of your life where you are still holding on to control, where you are resisting God's plan. What would it look like for you to surrender that area to Him? Is there a situation you are trying to fix on your own when what God is calling you to do is trust? Take a moment to pray and ask God to help you let go of your anxieties, your plans, and your desires, and to trust that His will is perfect. As you reflect on surrender, may you experience the peace of God that surpasses all understanding, and may you find the freedom that comes when you let go of the need to control and rest in God's loving arms. If you feel called to continue this journey of surrender, I encourage you to subscribe for more reflections and practices that will help you live in greater trust and peace. May God bless you with His grace, and may you experience the miracle of surrender in every area of your life.